Hey everybody, let's get into the spiritual war, part 4. Those of you who have been watching my videos recently, and especially last week's 4-hour-long one, I'm sure it put you into a bit of a turmoil. Waking up to this information is very triggering, especially when you could clearly see that something isn't right, and you know, and you can end up in a state of high emotion. Like, you can literally freak out. Fear will rise up in you, and it can feel like your whole world has just been ripped from your existence. I get it. I've been there. I went through this in varying degrees my entire life. And since 2008, I've been deeply enmeshed and pulled in multiple different directions. And, I've finally gotten to the point of enough understanding where God has pushed me to begin to share this information with you. Believe me, I really didn't want to, because it's downright uncomfortable, and I know it will cause some to walk away from me, but I received the message loud and clear. That is not my burden to carry, but theirs, and I need to basically do what I do, which is being guided by God, and He's going to send me the people, and I just need to do what He instructs me to do. And from there, it's not my burden at all. It's His, and it's the people's. So, my perspective is this: you either want unconditional love through the form of truth, which can be a bitter pill to swallow, or you don't, because you have fallen for the deception of unconditional love in the form of lies, which is easy and sugar-coated. You either believe in God, or you deceive yourself into thinking you believe in God. And I feel we are meant to uncover and discover these truths together, without ego involved, without fear involved, and, so we can learn from each other and unite as God's children. Like, that's what I wholeheartedly believe. And, hopefully that resonates with you. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. And, through this process, you will learn the truth through seeking the love, guidance, and forgiveness of Jesus and God, your actual saviors. And think about how people are ridiculed and persecuted for believing, trusting, having faith, and accepting Jesus and God into their life as their saviors. Yet it's okay to believe, trust, and have faith and accept saviors as the word of man, ascended masters, angels, spirits, guides, science, religions, aliens, UFOs, and whatever else, without seeking the truth. Why would the world actively keep you away from Jesus and God? Maybe because that is the way to set yourself free and unplug from Lucifer's world, which is here. Okay? He stole it. It worked for me. It's worked for countless others. And what do you have to lose by seeking God, by seeking Jesus, by asking for forgiveness and redemption? What do you have to lose by that? Right? Like, why is that worse than being materialistic and being stressed out all the time about whether you have a job or don't have a job, or what, I get it. I don't worry about that stuff, because I've put all my faith and trust in God. And those of you that know me, I've had my tribulations. I've had extreme hardships. But I've always been fine. I've always been provided for, even if it didn't come through the form of money. Always been taken care of. And that is where I put my faith. And it has worked. So what do you have to lose by trying it? So yes, I guess in essence right now, I'm being a pusher of Jesus and God. But I know it will set you free. And I do it because I know it works, and because I care, and because I love, and hopefully you can feel that and see that. So when you live your life seeking God first, everything else will work out. Fear is stripped away. Fear and chaos is not God. That is Lucifer usurping your mind to tempt you away from God. Those temptations come in so many forms. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It's so entrenched in our culture, in our world. It's very challenging to catch it, but you will through God's guidance, and it's awesome. What I've come to realize, the biggest deception ever pulled off by Lucifer is that he didn't exist, that he doesn't exist. I mean, I fell for that. I even preached that. I've even said, oh, well, no, those negative energies don't exist. Oh, well, guess what? They do. They do. And the reason why I felt that they didn't is because it came through the light and through, what seemed like positive experiences. It wasn't like some devil creature popping up in my face in that way. Although since I've gotten down this path, I have gotten evidence and proof of that from God, because I was being attacked once I really stumbled down the path and the truth. So, and I'm not saying that to scare you, because I don't want you to be scared, because all of that is stripped away from you when you put your faith in God, and God does come in and he's got your back. Totally has your back. Lucifer, Satan, negative energies, whatever, have no power over you. None whatsoever. The only way that they do is if you give your power to them. Now, all of humanity has fallen for this trick, right? And until you begin to question things and seek the truth, you're going to continue to fall into these false deceptions unless you truly want to know the truth. So I'm trying to help open your eyes, and I'm trying to give you different versions and different perspectives, but ultimately you've got to do this work yourself. So I want to try and bring some clarity so that you can kind of understand what I'm showing you is this earth is run by deception. And we're moving from an energy of evil to one of false light. Basically, we're going from evil to bad before Jesus returns and God comes in and officially cleans house. The false light that is emerging is what you're seeing at play in politics now. Trump is being propped up as the savior, and for others, it's Biden. I can tell you now that I seriously doubt Biden will win, because he's of the old beast system, or the swamp, or deep state, or whatever term you may be familiar with. Trump is the new system that is emerging. In his own words and others, he is the chosen one. But know that they are just putting in another version of the beast system to deceive us in greater ways, to give up our sovereignty and free will by distracting us with what seems to be good, which is all the things of this material world, but in actuality is the mark of the beast, which then marks you for eternal death and separation from God. And this is truth, and you will find it for yourself if you ask God for guidance to the truth and begin to read the Bible. The powers to be are being manipulated by the beast system and used. So they have distorted, flipped, and manipulated everything that is of God to trick you into choosing the false light. Let's discuss the Bible for a minute, because so many people get turned off by the Bible. Right? It's amazing how many people just freak out about the Bible and Jesus and God, Yes, there are mistranslations, omissions, and distortions in some ways. But when you begin to read the Bible and ask God to help you understand, you will begin to realize this is a living book. The Bible is very much alive because it is the Word of God, and He will make it very clear to you what is Him, what is not, and what you need to learn. The prophecies in the Bible literally have applied to every era on earth, and even more so now. God tells you everything, everything. what the earth really looks like, who the fallen angels are, and how they have shown up time and time again in different cultures and called by different names. He even tells you what to eat, what to stay away from, and exactly how you are being deceived. He makes it super easy. He makes it very clear that he is loving and forgiving. But again, it's all how you interpret the Bible and whether you actually take the time to understand it and take the time to connect and have God guide you. It is truly fascinating. Over my lifetime, I tried reading the Bible multiple times. And I even had a crappy attitude about the fact because I knew that there were omissions and, manipulations of the Bible. So in my head, I was very adamant about the fact of, well, why would I even bother reading it if I don't know what's what? Guess what that was? That was another deception. That was another way to keep me away from the truth, to keep me away from the Word of God. And that is happening with the majority of humanity. So I looked at it. It just wasn't time. I couldn't receive it. I wasn't ready. God had other plans for me first. I had to go through a bunch of other stuff. I had to travel down a couple of other paths, right? I had to go down the spiritual New Age path because I was not religious. I was not New Agey, not spirit. I was none of that. Like I had nothing of the sorts. Like I couldn't tell you anything about the New Age movement and spirituality. I couldn't tell you anything about the Bible, religion, any of that. So I went through a phase of exploring all of it. And I believe truly that is what God had planned for me. I had to fall for all the lies so that I could better understand the grand deception. And I almost feel like it was infiltrating, right? I was infiltrating the other side so that I would be able to better understand God's plan for me and how to remove myself from that situation. And that's happening on a level with all of you that are even listening to this, watching these videos. Like that is what is happening with you. God is guiding you. Like it's happening. Your interest is piqued for a reason. It's not just because I'm saying it or other people. It's God is guiding you. So trust God. Look, and none of us ever know the full truth, but through the guidance of God, you'll learn what you need to live, what you need to live in this world, but not be of this world, because you are of God. In my research, so far, I believe the Bible was in essence created as a living book by God because he knew it would be manipulated. I also believe it was written in parables, which just means stories, metaphors, which just means figure of speech, and synonyms. I'm probably butchered that, but synonyms, which just is different words having the same meaning. One, to test whether or not you truly want to know God, or if you just want to give up because it's just too hard to understand or too much of a pain to read. It's a big book, it's a lot of information there, and it's just hard to understand. So it's a turnoff. So I do believe it was a test. It's set up as a test. And when you're truly ready to read it, you will. Or it's going to deter you from it forever. Two, I believe that the Bible was created to be able to overcome any manipulations. And three, for it literally to apply to everything in some way to prepare you for what's to come. Four, so you could read it yourself without needing to go to a religious leader, or in other words, false prophet. It's your direct connection to God, so you won't be misled by some religious leader or guru who claims that you can only get the truth through them, never actually teaching you how to strengthen your connection with God, all while they push you to tithe or donate and tell you that you'll be rewarded from the material world if you do. Now, I've spent tons of time in church. I tried out all the religions. They're all the same. It's all about greed. There's some loving, caring people that go to church that are amazing, but I'm talking about the organizations themselves. And even in the Bible, it tells you it's not about religion. Okay. So meanwhile, you're broke, you're miserable, your relationships are falling apart, your career sucks, you're overthinking, you beat yourself up, you're having mental stress, and you're not really having God in your life because you've not been taught the proper way to have a connection with God, because you're not listening to the word of God, you're listening to everything other than him. And this doesn't even have to do with the Bible. God's communicating to us all the time. He's always giving us opportunities to choose his path, but so is Lucifer. So, like I said, so then you don't really have God in your life. Meanwhile, these preachers, organizations, they're living in their $1 million homes, driving their $1 million cars, and flying to their public events around the world to steal more money in their private $1 million jets, all while none of the professed causes that they're collecting the money for have seen any real results, and nothing that they've said has come to fruition. Hello, false prophets of light. Now you have to look at everything from a higher perspective as well. Or in other words, the bigger picture. Last week, we discussed the 3 types of spirits communicating with you: the holy, the human, and the demonic. But the big picture is that all spirits were created and come from the one true creator, or God. And you may be asking yourself then, why would he allow this grand deception to happen? What is the purpose and what role does it play? And if he's all seeing and all knowing, before we even see or know our own intentions, surely he would have known Lucifer's intentions. Yeah, of course. There's a bigger picture at play. Do we know that bigger picture? Probably not. I feel like I have a pretty good feeling about it, but I haven't validated it yet, so I don't think I'm going to share it. Another thought: isn't the fighting between the 2 beasts, Lucifer and Satan, or basically evil and bad, right? Isn't that just another form of keeping us fighting amongst ourselves? We're mirroring that battle of control, pride, ego, and dominance over each other. Again, scripture, I believe, has multiple meanings applied to multiple issues of this earthly plane, and perhaps even the bigger picture of the teachings in the Bible is the secret to everything and not anything to be fighting over, because every culture applied it to their experiences, their interpretations, but ultimately the big picture is our own personal relationship with our Creator. And the Bible, along with everything, is just a tool to perfect ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually in order to experience our birthright, which he created for us. This physical world, earth, body and spirit, being our eternal playground to learn and grow and enjoy without corruption. But we had to maybe experience the corruption because we were helping create it by losing ourselves in this material world, because our original bloodline parents, Adam and Eve, fell for the deception of Lucifer and ate the forbidden fruit of knowledge, which basically is the secrets that were supposed to remain in heaven, and for us to learn in God's way and not through the fallen angels. So we are perpetually out of balance with body, mind, spirit. And those are the 3 things that the demonic spirits existing within human form and through the ethers, if you will, the unseen, also otherwise known as the powers to be, are poisoning us. They're distorting our reality. They're corrupting us. They're basically destroying our entire lives to feed off of us mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I mean those in very literal terms. That's a subject way further down the path. So this video is going to show you some more current event symbols used this past month, because I really want to get that seared into your brain of the symbol so you can see it. So I'm going to show you some stuff from the MTV Music Awards, and also from like magazine covers and different things. I'm also going to share a video on the 5 stages of deprogramming, along with some different perspectives, and a video on what the mark of the beast is, or in other words, the Antichrist. As always, this information can be triggering, and after watching, remember to connect with God to help guide you to do your own research and validate this information for yourself. Also, if you want to share any videos, articles, or websites that you found, please feel free to email me or text me, and I will look into them and incorporate them in my spiritual war videos if they resonate with me, or if they resonate with me and fall into what I'm trying to build here. There is the deception, you guys, is so deep. It's so deep. It's so sick. It's so twisted. And there is information out there that will have you feeling sick to your stomach for a month straight, if not longer. We're going to ease our way into this stuff. If you stumble across it on your own, that's all well and good. And again, feel free to share this, share with me. But for today, I'm going to show you this stuff, and we'll see what I'm guided to share with you next week. And, the people that I'm sharing videos of and articles and different stuff, these are people that obviously I can't truly vouch for anyone, but they are sharing information that resonated with me, that passed the smell test for me, that I feel is based in as much truth as we could potentially understand at this point in time. But just remember, they're all human. They're all doing their research. We're all being guided in different ways. And ultimately, I believe that to be true because the puzzle is so large, it's so ginormous, that we all have a piece of it. We all have a piece of the puzzle to fit it together, right? So in order for the bigger picture to emerge, the times are amazing and fascinating. The truth is way better and way crazier than any movie you could potentially watch on TV. Like, it is just amazing. I don't know. It's amazing. And I don't want you guys to feel afraid. I don't want you to freak out about stuff. Don't start overthinking. Remember, when you start overthinking and you're getting into this fear and chaos and confusion, that is more than likely you're being psychically attacked, right? And you're overanalyzing your own actions. God is loving. God is forgiving. Ask for clarity. You will get validated, right? You will get validated. And if you're really struggling, book an appointment with me, email me, we'll figure it out. But again, like it's normal for you to have that reaction. I went through it as well. I mean, for me, it ended up getting so bad that both of my ears ended up getting clogged, right? I couldn't hear anymore. The second I let go and gave it to God and was like, okay, I got to take a break. And that was thanks to my sister. My sister was like, Rebecca, you're just getting information overload and you're all over the place. So you need to just let it go, take a break, let the validation come, the clarity come. And of course it did. And my ears cleared up. It's so amazing. Anyway, let me stop rambling and I'm going to get into the videos for you guys. See you next week.
can see, this is the evolution meter, and I've put God, the creator of everything, on the right side, and evolution on the left. I won't change my mind, because I don't have to, because I'm an American. I'm dug in, and I'll never change.
Beck, look, you're wasting our time. You're not going to get us to not believe in evolution.
And why is that?
Because the smartest scientists in the entire world all agree that it's real.
I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Reynolds, these were all the smartest scientists. Only problem is, they kept being wrong.
Oh, this is insane, you fool!
I'm a fool because I have more faith in the saints that wrote the Bible?
Yeah, because you just read the words of a bunch of guys that you never met, and you just take it on faith that everything they wrote was true.
And what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints?
Because there are volumes of proven data, numbers, figures.
Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures?
Well, no, no.
Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their words as truth based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith?
Come on. Look, I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that. Like, come on.
I rest my case.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. I made a video earlier today, entitled The Truth About a Second Term Trump Presidency the Trumpers Cannot Accept. And I was going to add this to the video after I completed the video, the voiceover in the video. I was going to add this, find a place to stick it in the video at some point. But as I went through the video, I couldn't find a suitable place, and I thought, this is probably worthy of its own separate video. From a very early age, we have been programmed to believe that you need a hero to defeat evil. There's a villain or some sort of evil activity out there, and if the villain has his way, he'll destroy the world. And the only thing that can prevent the villain from destroying the world is a hero. You understand this? How many times have you seen somebody save the world? How many times this week have you seen it? In terms of a movie or a TV show or a book or whatever it is. You see that the world's always in danger of being destroyed, and only a hero can stop the evil from destroying the world and itself with it. And so it's a critical flaw in the philosophy and understanding of good versus evil. This idea of good versus evil. Because the villain doesn't want to destroy the world. The villain wants to control the world. Evil wants to control the world. The evil isn't, evil doesn't want to die. The hero or the saint, the spiritual person, the godly person, accepts death and even looks forward to it when its time comes. The hero or the saint or God or whatever the protagonist is in any story doesn't have to destroy the villain, because the villain, just like everybody else, is going to die. And the villainous systems, the evil empires, the demonic systems, they also have to die. Whereas the good people in this world, the godly people, accept that life is limited, life is transitory, life is temporary, and that they're going to die at some point. And when they die, they go back to God. But the villain, who has been avoiding God, is going against the will of God, usurping the will of God, doesn't want to die, can't really die in the villain's mind, because they don't want to go back to God. The system, the persons, whatever it is. They can't face their own destruction and the powers that they have, whatever limited powers they have on planet Earth. So their whole job, their whole orientation becomes avoiding the inevitable death and collapse of the system and their lives and their power and control. And in the perfection that's divinity, any person that goes against the will of God becomes self-destructive. The system, like the system we have now, is self-destructive. The people are self-destructive, even though they're trying to control and prevent their inevitable demise. Is hardwired into their system because of guilt and shame and self-hatred and all the things that have been building up since they turned their back on their soul's path. And so even though they're working to prevent their own demise, they're actually creating it. So to reframe this, the fundamental difference between the spiritual person, the good person, the godly person, and the godly system, and the demonic person, the evil person, the villainous person, and the evil system, is that the saint, the good person, and the good system accepts their own demise, accepts the godly plan, where the villainous person, the demonic person, the devil, the devilish system, fights tooth and nail to control and rewrite its own destiny, to change its own destiny. And so what you see now is a system collapsing, a system that the people who control the system know is collapsing. They see that their system is collapsing, and they're desperately trying to prevent that from happening. They're trying to control and change the outcome of their fate. But being disconnected from God, being disconnected from their soul's path and the source, and having self-hatred and just all these sabotageable, suicidal tendencies, they're actually causing the system to collapse. You know people like this. You might be one of these people yourself, but at least you know somebody like this, or you've seen somebody like this, a character perhaps, somebody who is going to self-destruct. Every time they seem to turn the corner and they seem to be redeeming themselves and they seem to be doing good and living a normal life, they just can't do it. Something happens, some bad break happens to them, or just they do something to shoot themselves in the foot, and inevitably, you know, they're just going to collapse on themselves. They're going to destroy themselves. There's lots of people like this. More and more people are like this. And that's our system. We have this evil empire. It's a global evil empire. And there's great things about it. It's not completely evil in the sense that there's nothing good. There's lots of good things in the system. There are lots of benefits, lots of privileges and entitlements that make this system enjoyable. But the system has taken too many shortcuts, demonic shortcuts, and is moving people away from their spiritual path. And so it has to go. It has to be destroyed. Its fate is already written. It's already happened. You know, we experience time as linear, as a chronological order, as a line, a timeline, whereas time is really cyclical, and the collapse has already happened. And so we don't have to do anything about it. This idea where people are saying, the Q movement, trust the plan, and Trump, and, has to take down these villains, and the Democrats and the liberals believe Trump has to be taken down by some hero or whatever. I guess that's Biden. I don't know. I don't know how they're framing it in their minds. But, none of these things has to happen. Your job as a good person, a spiritual person, a saintly person, is to figure out what you're supposed to do. What's your purpose? And part of a spiritual person's purpose is not to get sucked into the demonic system, not to get sucked in to this evil system, not let it corrupt you, not let it pull you down in these other things, not let it to consume you with hatred for the evildoers, because there's evil in the system. But most people, good people who think of themselves as good, everyone thinks of themselves as good, but there's lots of people who are, maybe godly in nature and want to at least try to be good people or trying to be good people. And the problem is that we're all addicted and attached to the system. We're all dependent on it. And so we can't accept that it's going to collapse. And it's the best thing for everyone in the planet. It's part of God's plan. But people think that the system can be saved and be divinized and made good because they can't imagine living without it. So that's the whole problem. That's all the drama that's going on. When you detach yourself from that and you accept it, that in a certain date, it's going to collapse in phases, the system is going to change, and you're going to have to change and adapt to a new way of living. And so the idea that the world has to be saved is the system has to be saved. That's what people are thinking about, that the system is going to collapse and that's the world. But that isn't the world, because people will still survive. The planet will still survive. Very seldom is the world in real threat, like it is in the movies and TV shows. And so there doesn't need to be a hero. You just have to be able to accept and be grateful for whatever God gives you, whatever the situation God puts you in and your soul chooses, especially when you're going from a time of many privileges and pleasures and desirable things to a more difficult time, which is immediately going to follow the apocalypse, the collapse of the system. And so the controllers, the people who control the system, are willing to destroy the whole world or destroy as much as they can if they can't have it. It's like one of those, take my ball and go home move, right? We've seen this, and that's exactly what they intend to do. And so when that happens, then there needs to be a redemptive energy, a redemptive consciousness. There has to be better people that make the world worth saving, make the world worth being inhabitable for the human beings that inhabit it, as well as the animal life and all the rest of it. I've understood this. I still go back and forth personally because it's going to be hard for me to change. And I don't want to see the people I love and good people suffer, which is going to happen. So there's the human element to it. But in terms of understanding what I'm seeing, recognizing the pattern, every empire collapses. Every system collapses. Every, great empire, every great kingdom collapses at some point. And we just have to accept that. And the people, the villains, the people that are, the controllers and all these people that we see that everyone hates so much, are bringing about this collapse. So in a sense, they're doing God's work. And we don't have to like them. We don't have to help them. We don't have to do anything in terms of their work. But the system has to be brought down, and it will, because it's, already happened at some future time. And so again, once you accept that, then it's not so hard to watch all this stuff. It's just a system collapsing in on itself. It's a system that's self-destructing because it needs to. It's God's will. And that's what pockets of the future means, starting to create the future right now, living the way now, beginning to live the way now that people will all have to live in the future. And a big part of that is being spiritual. I do the heartfulness meditation, which is preparing people like a new human being in a different era on planet Earth, a different yuga, a different time, and all that is going to happen over the next couple of 100 years. And so you can start working on that now, start leaving the old system behind and working on creating a new way of being, a future human being, a future way of living and existing with God being at the center of your existence. Only spirituality will save this world. This is Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.
Hey everyone, it's Alexandra, and today's video is going to be a little bit different because I thought that we could just have kind of like an informal chat over tea. I have kind of identified like the 5 main steps that I feel like most people go through in this deprogramming, adventure. So I thought we would just kind of talk about some of those today. That being said, just FYI, I gave you guys tea, but it's kind of late right now when I'm filming it, so I'm just gonna be really cool and have some water if that's okay. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is that I asked some of you guys on Instagram how the deprogramming process felt like for you, and I wanted to read some of your responses. Hopefully this will help you guys not feel so alone. Slight disgust when seeing something obviously of their agenda in media. It was great, and then I told my family. It's lonely, but I live for Yah, not them. I originally woke up in 2004. It was a hard awakening. Then in 2018, Yah woke me up. Yes, this is the same thing that happened to me. I kind of explain it like getting out of the Matrix is not the same as getting out of Mystery Babylon. I feel like it's a two-step process. I woke up around like 2012-ish, but it wasn't until 2018 that Yah woke me up for good. It was a completely different type of awakening. I'm sorry for that. It sounded like I was a car backfiring.
Completely different.
It motivates me to be better and live in God's will, but also disappointing to be around people who can't wake up. I feel free, but then experienced loneliness because I couldn't relate to my friends anymore. I am not an expert in any of this, so this is not like expert advice or anything. This is just going to be kind of like my opinion and some of the things that I've learned. First, let's define terms. To understand what I mean by deprogramming, I want to define what I mean by programming. I'm not talking about trauma or torture-based mind control programming like that of Monarch programming or any subset of MKUltra projects. That is very complex, and I personally do not feel it would be safe or responsible to put on YouTube. What I'm talking about is the broad, unsophisticated version of programming of traditions and habitual thoughts. Some might consider that, quote, living on autopilot of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, reactions, beliefs, and traditions. Most of our foundational programming occurs when we're children. To get down to the core of your programming, start to examine the beliefs you were given to hold as a child. Take, for example, the solar system. Look at this little cup. Oh, it's like really bright. Anyway, it's Saturn. That was my shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm sure you guys can think of a couple of other examples like this one. This type of programming happens at school, on TV, in movies, at work, and within family structures. It's a never-ending process that's been put in place primarily by the media and the educational system. Fads, trends, memes, even small things like this influence behavior and shape society. The first step to deprogramming is admitting that you've been programmed. Deprogramming simply means to question everything that you've been taught. The good news is that computers are like our minds, and outdated programs can be changed. There's one thing that absolutely everyone is capable of, and that's learning. Learning and changing go hand in hand. Deprogramming is about training your mind to recognize past falsehoods, present conditioning, and to guard against future faulty information seeping in. Our minds learn things quickly and nearly permanently. The establishment uses this to kind of hack our minds and place things or the subconscious information they want us to internalize around every corner, which we rarely pick up. But when you go from being passive and go to being active in your own life, I'm sure you've noticed that you like actively watch TV when you walk by it, or if you watch movies or something with your family, but you can't say anything because people are like,
"Oh, Tim is ruining Star Wars again."
An early stage of learning the language of the Matrix is recognizing there's symbols they place in plain sight to be found, such as obelisks, triangles, or pillars. Then, there's symbols usually hidden and only picked up on by those in the know, such as swirls, triangles. Usually around children's programming are pizza, donuts, or ice cream, things like that. Then there are things that are not symbols at all, but stories as symbols, like scenes in Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, or any modern entertainment, really. So ask yourself, what is this scene really saying? What is it really teaching? The general public is usually not meant to understand the last two.
Pay close attention to everything you see. Notice what no one else notices, and you'll know what no one else knows.
Okay, let's get started. Weeding the garden. To take this journey is to take a long and difficult road. Taking the red pill, waking up, or getting out of the Matrix is easier said than done, and it looks different for everyone. Everyone watching this video is at a different level in their journey. Deprogramming is a multi-step process. It's not an on or off switch, as if it's linear, when it's actually pretty abstract. Waking up makes it seem like there's only being asleep and being awake. This doesn't allow for learning in the middle. Our minds are like gardens. Before we can plant seeds and expect flowers, we need good soil. But before you can plant anything, and before you can get to good soil, the garden needs to be weeded. The same way that the only true way to heal from and destroy mind control is to work through memories. To weed the garden of your mind is to work through all of your own beliefs and how they shape your thoughts. Honest internal communication is necessary. There are many pillars of programming. The Matrix has pillars like religious, governmental, history and science, and the personal one. It's paramount to unplug from all of them. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. So be patient with yourself and with anyone else trying to wake up. We all learn and grow, and more importantly, if you have asked Yahusha or Jesus Christ to forgive you for the things that you did before you knew how much it hurt him or that it was against his word, then you no longer have to be bound by your past programming or your past life. Because if you live each new day that he's given you, letting him direct your steps instead of the way that things used to be, that is, I feel like, a definition of how to be in the world and not of it. So ask yourself, how do you know what you know? Can you explain why you hold certain beliefs? Do you hold a belief just because you've always believed it? Ask yourself, is what I believe based on someone's opinion? Or where did this belief come from and what is its origin? Deprogramming is stopping and thinking through behaviors. The reason this has to be done at the very first stages is because your old house of programming was torn down and you can't build your new house with old boards. It's an ongoing process to go through all beliefs and know what to keep and what to replace. So during the first step of weeding, there was probably a piece of info that broke open your programming. Whatever it was for you, I'm sure you felt that from that moment on, the world looked a little different. When you keep researching, what you learn can be shocking, terrifying, challenging, or motivating. You might feel in denial of certain truths, or a sense of hurt and betrayal by people you were taught to trust. You might even feel fear or sometimes panic. I mostly felt anger because a friend of mine was convicted for a crime he didn't commit, but was actually committed by the Brothermen. That's when I say that I got my, they live glasses. But looking back now, I feel like I wasted way too much time on the Brothermen. I could have been learning, I could have been so much further ahead of my journey if I hadn't spent so many years on them. There was a lot more than just that one isolated incident. Anyone who has started with just one small thing and that exploded into their awareness of the matrix around them has definitely experienced phase 2. This is the most dangerous phase, in my opinion. The rabbit hole. This is where you begin your journey into the endless rabbit trails of information, and the world starts to look like your worst nightmare. This stage is dangerous because discernment is still being developed, and you're still figuring out what is and isn't true. Remember that you're trying to clean out the weeds, not plant new seeds yet. While it is, in my opinion, absolutely necessary to learn the characters in this show, it is not necessary to learn every detail. Know enough to not be fooled anymore, or to be aware of certain truths, but don't obsess over one thing. Don't get stuck in any of their trails. Most lead to dead ends and confusion anyway. Know enough, but know when to get out and move on. No doubt that you've come across quite a bit of disinfo from sites like this, and a bunch of others, or popular videos or TV shows, but weeding out disinfo like this gets easier the more that you do it. Especially when you learn who owns all of these networks and sites, and that they all kind of are in this together. To get the whole picture, relational thinking is required. You need to be able to relate each new piece of info to what you already know, and have tested to be true. Treat each piece of info as if it's a puzzle piece. Once you have enough pieces, you start to see the picture. Don't try to make a puzzle piece fit if it doesn't. You're probably missing something or need more pieces to understand where that one fits. If it never fits into the bigger picture, it's most likely not true. The truth will anger you, and sometimes it'll frighten you, but the truth doesn't change just because it hurts our feelings, or upsets our future plans, or destroys our relationships. Sometimes we need to be taught those difficult lessons to become who Yah wants us to be. During this learning phase, you are under construction. You're a work in progress. And it's okay to make mistakes. Yah wants progress, not perfection. After all, Yah never used perfect people to share his message. In Exodus 4, Moses says that he was slow of speech and of a slow tongue. In 2 Corinthians, Paul begged Yah 3 times to remove the thorn from his flesh because he was in chronic pain. But Paul was not healed. Instead, Yah said, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Yah doesn't always answer prayers the way that we want him to, but in the way that he knows is best for us. And that way we'll always glorify him. If we keep him first, he will carry us through the rough times. When talking about what you learn, stay away from words and terms that have what I call a kickback program on them. Words that have been weaponized include conspiracy. The CIA began in 1947. This psych dispatch from them was issued in 1967. This was the origin of the terms conspiracy and conspiracy theorist. According to Corey Diggs, those words are just as so many other labels have been used to distract, manipulate, and change the narrative to suit their agenda. These documents show that the CIA gave the media and their friendly elite contacts their talking points to challenge the claims that the Kennedy assassination was a plot by the US government and to blame communist propagandists for making up the lies. Saying it's not a conspiracy theory, but to somebody in the Matrix is like anything you say after that is invalid.
But it's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. It's real, right?
You are not a conspiracy theorist. You are a researcher with facts and evidence. You can back up what you believe. After all, condemnation without investigation is called indoctrination. Truth seekers are not breaking from reality. They are breaking from a shared reality. The term woke is another example. The Urban Dictionary has a funny way of putting it, the act of being very pretentious about how much you care about a social issue. The term woke is being used for all sorts of things these days, which only proves that a person is anything but woke. Another example is FE. Globers see memes or jokes about the FE Society and assume they know everything about it. The FE Society is one of the biggest disinfo sites around. Globers mock FEers by showing how little they know about who they're mocking with jokes about, like, falling off the edge, or still trying to fit Glober logic into the FE model. Humor hides fear, and the reality of not living on a globe is just too scary for most. The literal ground they stand on is a lie. Be careful what you bring into your garden during this phase because that is where a lot of disinfo is. Learn everything, but don't believe everything just yet. Some disinfo can be useful, so don't be afraid to look into things. You can research topics and beliefs without believing them yourself. I feel like it is absolutely necessary to look into what other people believe, to understand why they hold those beliefs and why they came to those conclusions for their own life. Vetting sources is important. Know who controls what site or what agenda the author has. Do they have ties to specific organizations? And start recognizing the more popular an idea is within a community to look into how it originated or who came up with it, and why is it so popular. A good way to spot disinfo is if it induces fear. If it is very fear-driven, but there's not a whole lot of facts, you can probably safely discard it. You can know a lot of facts, or have a lot of knowledge about the Matrix, but without wisdom, what is the point? Knowledge for its sake alone? That's self-aggrandizement. Truth is what leads to wisdom and freedom. I also suggest keeping notes to keep your thoughts organized. I even made this chart for my video in Inconvenient History to show a simplified version of how a lot of different rabbit trails are definitely connected. Alright, you've learned a lot. Welcome to Phase 3, Oversharing. You just want to tell everyone what you've learned, but it's all falling on deaf ears. You shared something, or you told someone something, and instead of being asked another question, they got angry at you. They called you crazy, they laughed at you, maybe they just changed the subject, or they seem completely uninterested. The more research that I put into the occult, the more it became clear that Yah was not the cause of all the chaos and evil in the world. But learning of all that chaos and evil can be jarring, especially at first. When you begin to realize the depths of corruption and evil and depravity committed by those that we're taught to trust. But once you learn their tricks, they can't fool you anymore. Matthew 10:16 says to be wise as serpents, which means you have to know what the serpent knows. And be harmless as doves is to be set apart from their ways, but just as knowledgeable or even more so than they are. The second you wake up, you become a target. Imagine you're in a cave, and waking up from the Matrix is like waking up the dragon. Lucifer has worked endlessly with his legions of fallen angels and Nephilim to keep you from ever discovering he's the one behind all this. He always tries to pin the blame on Yah, when in reality, it's all his fault. He knows every trick in the book, so he can come as evil and cause things like personal injuries or confusion, anger, spiritual attacks. You might even have nightmares or things like that. The world seriously downplays the influence of demons, demonic entities, and Nephilim, especially when you're waking up and trying to get out of the Matrix. Be aware that you are a target, and these entities have worked very hard your whole life to keep you from ever hearing or looking into the truth. They're not just going to let you go that super easily. You got to cover yourself in prayer. You got to cover your family in prayer. I mean, anything around you, just make sure that they are not welcome there at all. You belong to someone else now. Or he can come as an angel of light and sway you easily into things like the New Age agenda, which sounds a lot like mystic Christianity, which is really popular in the media as well as in churches right now. He can discourage you from looking any further into something by maybe embarrassing you. He can make you feel guilty for knowing what you know. He can distract you from being able to look into anything. He can make you feel hopeless. He can put people in your path to take you away from what you were learning and put you back on the path of the world. Or you feel like people are not going to take you seriously. I mean, look at me. Do you think people really take me seriously when I talk about this kind of stuff? They expect me to be talking about, like, what kind of granite I'm going to put on the countertops. Guess what? I don't care. If you feel afraid to speak up, what I've learned is before you speak, ask Yah to give you the words that he wants you to speak for that specific person, and to have what you say impact them in a way that they will understand. Not so much what you are trying to say, let it be what Yah wants to speak through you. We've learned our history is wrong. Our heroes are murderers. Our celebrities are satanic ritual abuse victims, and a small group of families and organizations call the shots. Even worse, those families and organizations take all of their orders straight from the fallen. We've learned that even though this web of lies is massive, there's a very small cast of characters at its core. Unfortunately, oversharing info has had consequences every researcher has had to deal with. One of the biggest examples was this in 2016. The crimes uncovered during that time are very real, but very few accept this harsh reality. So many people were oversharing what they found that the cabal actually pulled a false flag at Meteor Table Tennis to discredit anyone who mentions it again. It's frustrating because you just want to share everything that you've learned, but you get rejected at every turn. Remember that people need patience and time, and waking up is a process. They're like a game of Jenga. Each time you share something in a knowledgeable way, like slipping in a comment, asking a question, you're pulling out one of those blocks. Now imagine when something big actually happens that everyone sees, like another false flag, some kind of financial reset, maybe the arrest of a very prominent figure, something like that. It'll topple the tower, and you'll likely be the one explaining what's going on, because you were the one watching. Think back to when you were in grade school. You hated math. Or did you? Did you actually hate doing math problems, or did you hate feeling belittled, confused, or unintelligent? Maybe because you didn't learn as fast as some of the other kids. Or maybe just because you learned differently than everyone else. People don't hate the truth. They hate feeling confused or looked down on. And most people don't like feeling wrong. They don't want to think that everything that they've believed through their whole life is wrong. But what I've learned from my own personal struggle is that you can tell a lot of people a lot of truth, but when they repeatedly reject you, it's time to move on. Whatever that looks like for you, whether it's blocking somebody or maybe just distancing yourself from friends or family, or if you're unable to physically distance yourself from them, maybe it's just being really patient with the people that you still have in your life. Like for me, I stopped hanging out with my old friends my childhood friends when I left cosplay behind, which is dressing up like cartoon characters or video game characters, I guess a little bit over a year ago now. And then I lost my family. The only one that I still have is my mom. She and I had some rough patches, but we've both changed a lot, and we had to start over because we weren't the people that we used to be. And I think that's also important. If you've changed, you need to kind of reintroduce yourself to your family or the friends that you still have, or maybe that will still listen to you. I truly believe, because I've seen it, that anything Yah takes away from you is ultimately for your own good. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. But you know what? If my cat is chewing on a ribbon, I'm going to take it away from him. He doesn't know that that's going to hurt him. You know? I do. I know what's better for him. He just sees it as me taking away his fun. But that's not my intention. I'm actually trying to protect him. And I think when I finally saw Yah's position like that, that really helped me also change. It's like, it's not about what my friends think about me. It's not about what they want to do. It's not about what I think I should do to fit in anymore. It's about flipping your world upside down. So my point about all of that was that everyone deserves to hear the truth. Like Ezekiel 33:4 says, "Then if anyone who hears the sound of the trumpet does not take warning, and the sword comes and takes him away, his blood shall be upon his own head." When you've shared the truth and it's been rejected, that person's blood is no longer on your hands, because they had the opportunity to hear the truth and they chose to reject it. You've probably learned that it also takes discernment to know when, where, and how to start presenting the truth or to share a bit of information. If you're asked, answer. But when someone is willfully ignorant and you know that you are not going to be able to get through to them, it's not the right time. Remember how long it took you to get to this point. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you, says Matthew 7:6. You can do a lot of work to get out of the matrix and its pillars, but ultimately it's Yah that gets you out of Mystery Babylon. He shows you how every pillar is resting on Lucifer's lies. You are no longer of this world, of Lucifer's kingdom. You are now in the world, but not of it. You have a new king, and you belong to his kingdom. That is the beauty of Yah. He is patient and merciful and loving and kind and ultimately forgiving, because in the occult, if you mess up, that's it. There is no forgiveness, no salvation, and no mercy. My opinion is that the only way to completely deprogram is to be cleansed by Yah and his Holy Spirit and have him unite your heart and mind. That's why I say for me, waking up to the Matrix was not the same as getting out of Babylon. Just like the first step to programming is admitting you were programmed, the first step to having Yah heal you and change you is admitting you want him to change you. You have to be willing to literally let him make you into a new person. Now that we've run a really long race, let's go back to step 1 and brush off any unnecessary programming or information that we've picked up, any baggage along the way. A lot of stuff gets grafted onto you during the relearning process. It's only natural to try to find others that are like you and have learned what you learned, and we can kind of share a common experience, but a lot of people do join like social media groups. They watch YouTube videos, and that's a great way to start learning. Just be careful along the way. If they confuse you or they go against scripture, get out. The enemy knows exactly where people go when they wake up. He's the first person that's going to meet you there. The New Age relies on leaders and gurus to do the thinking for their followers. This structure also exists in the religious pillar of the Matrix. Popes say that it's dangerous to have a personal relationship with Yah. Pastors act as gatekeepers to knowledge, and you have to listen to their opinion on scripture, instead of just reading the scripture for yourself. Don't copy off of someone else's paper, do your own research. Pray about what you've learned, and as you search scriptures, ask Yah to show you some clarity about what you've learned and either confirm it or just totally get rid of it. Yah is the ultimate truth giver. You know, he should be the one that we ask, not, I don't know, somebody on like Twitter. I know that sounds weird coming from a person on YouTube, but I don't really recommend any channels because I don't watch any. I guess what I'm saying is don't depend on other truthers or truther sites to do your thinking for you. I just want everybody to get, interested in scripture again and just try and foster their relationship with Yah, because it's made such a big difference in my life, and I want other people to experience that as well. But if you're feeling overwhelmed and confused, I think a social media hiatus could be useful. And really use that time to strengthen your relationship with Yah. We want knowledge of the truth, not just knowledge. The point of researching and realizing that we have been lied to by the establishment for generations is to come out of the lies, to spiritually come out of Mystery Babylon. All right, so I have an outline for you guys to look at that details the first-person process of deprogramming and unplugging from the religious pillar of the Matrix. You guys can find that in the description box. When you can be secure in your own beliefs and have knowledge, facts, and scripture to back up your claims, congratulations! That's a big deal. And it's a big step because now you've gotten rid of the weeds in your garden and you've put in good soil. And the final phase, to watch. Not everyone is called to be a watchman on the wall, but it is up to everyone to listen to the watchmen when they sound the alarms. You might feel like you want to save the entire world, save everyone from the hidden hand, from Lucifer's kingdom. But that job belongs to Yah. Our job is to point as many people towards him as we can, and try and drown out the noise from Mystery Babylon long enough for people to hear a new song. We can't tell everyone, but if you tell one person, or you break one person's programming, Yah cares. Every single person matters to him. He loves them like he loves you and I. Don't feel discouraged. Not everyone is ready to get out of Mystery Babylon. Even Lot's wife looked back. Changing the world doesn't have to be some big thing you do, or some huge impact through some action. The fact that you're still here, after being called crazy, being told that you're wrong, or that you don't belong, is big enough. By staying strong despite all of the accuser's accusations, by believing in Yah even when we're ridiculed, looked down on, and ostracized, when we refuse to back down and stand our ground despite everything that this world throws at us, we are changing the world by watching for his return. Thank you guys for spending this time with me today over tea, talking about deprogramming. I really appreciate you guys. All right, that's it for this video. Take care. Bye, everyone. We need to talk about the Mark of the Beast. While there are countless opinions and ideas out there about what the mark is, this is mine. I'm going to try to show you how I came to this conclusion and why it is extremely important right now to be watching out for it. To give a baseline, I'll just remind you of how the Bible describes the Mark of the Beast in Revelation 13:16 through 18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark, or the number of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let he that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. You think I'm going to say the he being referenced here is the Antichrist, right? I'm not. Here's why. The chapter is very clear about who gives the mark, and it is not the Antichrist. It is also very clear that there are two characters here, the first beast and the second. The first beast, also called the beast of the sea, is the one associated with the Antichrist system, but I'll get to that in a second. The second beast, the beast of the earth, the false prophet system, also called the Alliance, is the one that gives the mark. If we take it back to verse 11, this becomes even clearer. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. The idea that the mark of the beast is this ambiguous form of technology that somehow tracks your every movement better than a phone or a Fitbit, or lets you pay without using cash like Apple Pay, or has facial recognition software like they already do in China and in some US cities, and is given by a human Antichrist, is a Jesuit idea popularized by the media. For example, Season 8 of popular television series American Horror Story depicts a character as the Antichrist. The characters even quote incorrectly from Revelation 13 verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. They somehow think this refers to a single person. specifically a human person.
But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human.
This scene represents the misinformation believed by Christians and non-Christians alike. That verse describes the first beast, the beast of the sea, the Antichrist system, and the spirit of Belial and his many armies. But that beast is not the one responsible for the mark. In American Horror Story, this Antichrist character even has a suspicious 666 scar behind his ear, which, as I've shown you, or if you've read in your own Bible, is completely inaccurate and only perpetuates this lie. The idea that there is an individual Antichrist is the most popular idea, but what is popular does not equal what is true. That idea is followed by the Antichrist being the personification of evil. So like just some random ambiguous form of evil, maybe in nature, maybe in humans, we just don't know. Then finally a character of history that has already lived and died. We know the Bible references two beasts in Revelation 13. These are conglomerates of two distinct agendas. Magic describes these agendas as right-hand or left-hand path, dark and light, bad and evil. Notice I didn't say good and evil. To those who hold the belief that a single man will arise and somehow desecrate a temple and claim that he is God and be worshipped by the whole world, I want to ask you, how could one man match the deep state, the cabal, and the elite who have almost complete control over all forms of media? And because of this, they convince us that we are the problem so that we divide ourselves and fight each other and never learn the truth of who rules over us. Money in America is controlled by a private central bank, the Federal Reserve. The road to complete control has not been short or easy. It's been inching its way forward for millennia, since before the flood and then after the days of Nimrod. Now we're at the final phase, moving past the transition from the first beast to the second, and into the total control of this second beast. How can a single man that is to come somehow be worse than the first beast system that runs the world on the blood of human trafficking, drug trafficking, satanic ritual abuse, pagan idolatry, slavery, and the strategic rejection of truth? So one man is somehow going to be more blasphemous to God than the world that we live in? A world with Shiva the Destroyer at CERN, a woman riding the beast at the EU headquarters, the demonic statue behind the Pope's throne, the Statue of Liberty, which is Saint Germain or the Lightbearer, Prometheus, who is a fallen angel at Rockefeller Plaza, Bohemian Grove Owl, which is Moloch or Minerva, the Goddard Tunnel opening, Georgia Guidestone's depopulation agenda, Egyptian obelisks, which are monuments to Osiris, as well as countless other occult symbols, mega rituals like 9/11, we have Pizzagate, trauma-based mind control, eugenics, elite bloodlines. The list goes on. Another reason the Cabal is Antichrist is because they are literally Antichrist. They follow the rules and the laws of the Babylonian Talmud, which is the most Antichrist book in existence. The only ones who believe in a future Antichrist evil man are the ones who don't see the reality of the world we live in. Another reason the Antichrist as a man became so popular was because of a book series called Left Behind, written by Freemason Tim LaHaye, who also popularized the idea of a rapture. The entire rapture doctrine is unbiblical, and is not what the Word of God tells us is in store for the world at these end times. The doctrine is supported by distortion and misinterpretations of what the Bible really says. This is a very big topic that I will probably cover in another video. If you get your theology from Tim LaHaye, that's like getting your news from Alex Jones. Anytime an RFID chip is mentioned, people scream Mark of the Beast. Throwing out the phrase the Mark of the Beast cheapens the massive and worldwide event that is going to be the true mark, based in biblical truth and actual historic events leading up to a worldwide currency reset. People usually conjure up ideas like one day the entire world is just going to turn upside down and everyone is suddenly going to know that it's the end. But we don't live in a movie. Everyone missed Jesus because they were looking for a king, someone worthy of being the Messiah. And looking for a sign that says 666 in the form of some sensational technology is not rooted in our reality. In our mundane world, a new quantum financial currency reset would be that neon sign.
One of the things that I learned from whistleblowers from the Cabal itself is that they have to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. So I really want to make sure that this gets into the film. The rules are a body of spiritual principles that they must follow in order to be allowed to exist. Now, what do I mean by allowed to exist? I mean that they are aware that there are benevolent forces that will prevent them from achieving their goals unless we give them permission to enslave us.
Regardless of what you think about David Wilcock, the universal laws are true. Malevolent forces, or fallen angels, and disembodied spirits of Nephilim or demons cannot do anything without our consent or that is outside of prophecy. This is why prophecy is so subjective. If there were too many specifics given, instead of parables to be interpreted at the correct time, the malevolent forces would be locked into fulfilling prophecy in one specific way, which suggests a deterministic God, which could not be farther from the truth. Prophecy works like a hurricane spaghetti model. Certain paths merge into one based on decisions made by us humans, presented to us by the principalities of the air, and executed by the wicked who hold positions of power. The idea of a worldwide RFID chip being forcefully implanted into every single individual does not even follow the very laws that the dark cabal must follow. Besides, say for some reason that were to happen, what system does the RFID chip run on? How is it different from your IP address, your cell phone, your bank account? How does it work to connect all people in all places? You see, the chip itself is superfluous when you take it to its logical conclusion. There must be a system behind its operation, something revolutionary that has never happened before, like a new quantum financial system. So here we go. What my opinion on what the Mark of the Beast will be is the worldwide quantum financial reset, also called NESARA. NESARA began with Saint Germain, and if you haven't already, check out my video, The Saint Germain Deception, to understand why this particular entity is so important and how this event has been in the works throughout all of history. I will leave a link in the description below. But as a reminder, Saint Germain is part of the New Age belief system, but he is actually quite ancient. He is also said to be an ascended master. A better description of him is the fallen angel we call Lucifer, whose real name is Gadrael. The Book of Enoch references Gadrael and calls him the angel who deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden. It's been documented that in 1729, Saint Germain was busy working on establishing and funding a world trust. The Saint Germain World Trust contains the majority of the wealth that will be distributed to the world once the new financial reset takes place. Saint Germain's World Trust Prosperity Program is also known as NESARA and JSARA. NESARA stands for the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and it applies only to the United States, while JSARA, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, applies to the rest of the world. Saint Germain specifically stated that the money in his World Trust would be used in the future for prosperity and humanitarian purposes. For centuries, elite families who follow the light, or the agenda of the second beast, have been contributing to this World Trust. And now, after 250 years of compound interest, Saint Germain's World Trust is over $1 quadrillion. That is one with 45 zeros behind it. The reason there is an American program and a worldwide program is because that America determines to a large extent what happens in the rest of the world. And the US was none other than Saint Germain's own Masonic experiment. The United States will also be the first country to distribute the prosperity funds. NESARA was secretly passed by Congress on March 9th of 2000. And the military forced Bill Clinton to sign it into law. Pay attention, the military, the ones behind the entire Q movement and part of the beast system, forced Clinton, a dark Kabbalist of the first beast system, to sign this. JSARA was inserted into the Paris Agreement that was signed into law in 2015. Now, Trump did take the US out of the Paris Agreement because America is not part of JSARA. We have NESARA, the version specific to the USA. As a program, NESARA can be viewed from several perspectives. The New Age says that NESARA is a spiritually directed financial program and traces back to the work of Saint Germain. It was designed to provide a new economic system for the world during the time of transition. The transition they mention is happening now, with Trump, the White Hats, and Q eliminating the cabal or the deep state and draining the swamp. The power is shifting from the dark cabal or the Antichrist system to the alliance or the false prophet system. From the first beast to the second beast, or as Q always says, from dark to light. However, this is only the false light masquerading as the real thing. As a side note, a prophet is someone who predicts the future. A false prophet is someone who predicts a false future. Promising humanity a glorious future after the cabal is taken down is a false future. The New Age says that this time of transition is from the Piscean Age to the Age of Aquarius. Now, Saint Germain says that he is the teacher of the Aquarian Age. Unfortunately, he will never get to have his own millennial reign after this financial reset because he is Lucifer and this is the mark. It is literally the last prophecy before Jesus' physical return. The World Trust was supposed to be distributed to the world at the beginning of what Saint Germain called Christendom's second millennium, or the year 2000. But as Y2K got closer, it became clear that the Dark Cabal who controlled the world was not about to let this happen. Nasara was due to be announced September 11th, 2001 at 10 a.m. But the Cabal blew up the World Trade Center buildings to prevent it. The gold which backed the new currency was stored in the World Trade Center towers and was stolen by the Cabal. This is an example of how the hand of prophecy can never be forced. While we were in the end times, the 7-year tribulation hadn't started yet. There were more prophecies to be fulfilled. Humanity as a collective had to agree to certain spiritual tests given to us by the principalities. The Hurricane Spaghetti model of possible prophetic outcomes still had too much uncertainty of what humanity would spiritually agree with or consent to. And we now see a record number of people claiming to be spiritual, yet rejecting Jesus. 2 Timothy 3:5 says, having a form of godliness but denying the power of thereof. The faction behind Nasara consider themselves to be working for the light, or the system that is against the Cabal. But remember that whole thing how there's not bad versus good, but bad versus evil? Just because the false prophet system is taking down the Antichrist one does not mean that the false prophet is good. The ones behind Nasara are now working with Donald Trump to bring about this new financial system. Most of the people working to defeat the Cabal and end the Fed are in the military. Since Nasara failed in 2001, they decided there was no sense in implementing it before the Dark Cabalists were removed from power, which is exactly what Donald Trump and Q are doing, along with the help of other alliance countries like China and Russia, along with many others. They are now in line with prophecy. Besides, the New Age claims that the most recent incarnation of Saint Germain is Donald Trump. The time has almost come to release the prosperity funds from Saint Germain's World Trust, because those who control the monetary system are no longer in control. Nasara forgives credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. It abolishes income tax, abolishes IRS, creates flat rate, non-essential, new items only sales tax revenue for government, increases benefits to senior citizens, returns constitutional law, establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after Nasara's announcement, monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities or special interest groups, creates a new U.S. Treasury currency or rainbow currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals. It initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law, eliminates the Federal Reserve System, or ends the Fed, restores financial privacy, retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law, seizes all aggressive U.S. government military action worldwide, establishes peace throughout the world, initiates first phase of worldwide prosperity distribution of vast wealth which has been accumulating for many decades, releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes, enables the release of new technologies such as alternative energy devices. Nasara and Jasara will create an entirely new system of worldwide currency that is transparent, backed by gold, not governed by bankers, and runs on the blockchain. An unhackable, ledger-driven accounting of every transaction ever made, which offers transparency and privacy and is 100% traceable. And blockchain is not just for money. It also eliminates the possibility of voter fraud and all illegal activity like that of the dark web. Even though the United States was on a gold standard before President Nixon took us off of it in the 1970s, this time is different. Nixon took us off the gold standard in order to create debt and make the Federal Reserve more powerful. The new gold is not coming from the Fed or any country's central bank, but from Saint Germain's World Trust. This has never happened before. Nasara will be used to buy out all countries, oil corporations, banks, pharmaceutical cartels, and zeroes out all of their debt. Once all of those levels are paid out, the remaining funds will be distributed to the people. In my opinion, before these funds can be accepted, each person will have to make some sort of pledge to use this new money for humanitarian purposes, or make some sort of oath to humanity. Oh hey, would you look at that, the Illuminati already has a blueprint. Upon this eternal oath, I freely pledge to dedicate my mind to the discovery of knowledge, to dedicate my soul to the pursuit of enlightenment, to dedicate my efforts to the progress of abundance, to dedicate my existence to bringing all people and all places into unification, and to dedicate my life and days upon this planet to the protection and advancement of the human species. Swearing an eternal oath doesn't sound that bad, right? James 5:12 says, "But above all things, my brethren, swear not. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all." Right? The people of the United States are the ones most in danger for accepting these funds, or the mark of the beast, because they may not realize that in just a few days or weeks, after Nasara goes into effect, the entire world will be on the same system. All banks worldwide will be forced to announce Jasara, the new quantum financial system, and bank debt forgiveness a few days or weeks after Nasara's announcement. They call it a one-time jubilee, or canceling of debt, which is a strictly Hebrew idea. Why is everything associated with this reset based on biblical terms? Forgive us our debt as we forgive our debtors. It's almost as if they're trying to deceive even the elect. In the US, there will be a grace period when your Federal Reserve notes will be accepted and taken out of circulation. But after that time, only the new currency will be accepted. In other words, you won't be able to buy or sell without it, just like it says in Revelation 13:17. The reason this new money backed by gold is so important is because of King Solomon, which was one of Saint Germain's incarnations. In other words, Solomon was one of the most influential alchemists, occultists, and was guided by none other than Lucifer himself. Revelation 13:18 says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And we see that in 1 Kings 10:14, "Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold." With all of this information, Revelation 13:18, which says the number of the beast is the number of a man, or Solomon, and his number is 666 in gold. Hopefully, my opinion is starting to make sense now. God gave us all the information we need to decipher the Bible within the Bible. In other words, the Bible cross-references itself. With some study and research, the parallels and warnings about Solomon can be found in many other places of the Bible, such as 2 Chronicles 9:13. God does not repeat himself without reason. We need to heed his warning. So in conclusion, don't take the money. Don't rush into accepting this currency revaluation. If you believe this to be the mark as well, you must also believe that Jesus is returning any time thereafter. Since we are at the end of the tribulation, watching for the last prophecy, Jesus will return before whatever grace period runs out for trading in your cash and taking notes, tokens, rainbow currency, cryptocurrency, or taking this new form of currency. Don't buy into the fear and don't buy into the hype, the public shame, possible financial difficulties, the group mentality, or let the love of material things confuse you into thinking that this is something good that you want or that you need to have. The reason the verse says that he causes all, not forces all, is because of posts like this and this. Who wouldn't want to be free from debt and be rich? Yeah, no one, because that's exactly how our world has been conditioned to operate. Matthew 6:24 says, "You cannot worship God and money." Note that the older versions say mammon. Mammon was the demon over greed and money. You guys ever seen a hearse followed by a U-Haul? Yeah, none of this stuff here matters. Like Matthew 6:19 says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." This is the final test. Who do you trust? Who do you believe? Mark 10:24. How hard is it for them that trust in riches to enter into the kingdom of God? God is not the God of this material world. John 18:36. My kingdom is not of this world. The mark is what separates you from God because God promises nothing material at all. It's your works, your right hand, and your thoughts, your forehead, or if you want to get technical, the pineal gland, that show where your allegiance is. Are you focused on him, or are you still in love with the things of this world? 1 John 2:15, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world." Notice how Nasara and all the new stuff promised by this false prophet system is the same scenario that played out in Matthew 4:8, when Jesus was tempted by Lucifer with all of the kingdoms of the world. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." We will be presented with the exact same proposition, and we should answer just like Jesus did. Get behind me, Satan. Bottom line, don't fall for the hype. If it's too good to be true, it's probably the mark of the beast. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hi everyone! I know I've talked a lot about Q in previous videos, but I've never really talked about President Trump. As you know, he was already famous before he became president, and he was the epitome of wealth. He managed to get a large portion of the evangelical vote because he convinced them that Hillary's America would take away their religious rights, their gun rights, and raise their taxes. Many begrudgingly voted for him because the alternative seemed worse. After Obama's 2 terms, people felt like their voices weren't heard, so they took whatever they could get. But Christians today see him differently, like some sort of savior sent by God.
I think God calls all of us to fill different roles at different times, and I think that he wanted Donald Trump to become president, and that's why he's there.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness? I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay?
I'd say that has nothing to do with following the Bible and more with following tradition. On September 29th of 2006, over a month before the presidential election, a New Age source posted this message through channeling.
Donald Trump will be president by destiny. He is a soul extension of Saint Germain, who is an expert in creating wealth and has a momentum of light that permits him to win any battle or confrontation with the dark ones. Saint Germain is the hierarch of the Aquarian Age and is involved with the project of peace, prosperity, and recreation of civilization, which will propulse mankind, and this planet, in a golden age era.
Saint Germain knows that Trump is good at creating wealth, and that makes him the perfect choice for bringing in the financial reset. If you've watched my videos about Saint Germain, then you know how big a deal this is, and you see how far we've come in the last few years regarding the transition from the Cabal to the Alliance, or from the first beast to the second beast of Revelation. One of Saint Germain's claims to fame was that he knew how to create wealth. Trump's New York penthouse and Mar-a-Lago resort are decorated in gold, much like Versailles, during the reign of Louis XIV. He was also called the Sun King. Trump is associated with gold, and gold is associated with the sun, and the sun is associated with Lucifer. Trump's relationship to gold is not an accident. He was prepared by light occultists for this very time in our history. He is not endorsed by God, but by Lucifer, for the specific purpose of taking down the Cabal, bringing in the quantum financial reset, Nasara, Jasara, or the Mark of the Beast. Just like Revelation 13 prophesied. Those same Christians that seem to support Trump have forgotten that during Obama's administration, they were the very ones calling him the Antichrist.
Christian God is the one and only true living God, the creator of heaven and the universe. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God.
The media encouraged that idea as well. And who can forget the Denver DNC in 2008 when Obama received the nomination for president? He stood in front of a replica of the altar of Pergamum, the seat of Satan, mentioned in Revelation 2:12, and is called the seat or the throne of Satan. In contrast, Donald Trump entered the RNC in 2016 like this. Dark to light. And remember this?
Just this week, Michelle Bachmann actually predicted that I would bring about the biblical end of days.
Dark occultists worked very hard to portray Obama as the Antichrist we've all been conditioned to look for. If you've watched my previous videos, then you know that the Antichrist system, the Cabal, the Beast of the Sea, or the Spirit of Belial was the power behind the Obama administration for the purpose of bringing in the Dark World Order. The Obama years, especially after he was allowed to continue from 2012 to 2015, were years of fear. FEMA camps, coffins, hollow point bullets, watchtowers, jade helm, martial law, and guillotines. Obama was the last of the successful Antichrist system's puppets. Even the ones saying Obama was the Antichrist suddenly started to act like the tribulation got canceled once Q came on the scene. The tribulation has not been canceled. We've just moved from the first beast to the second beast. The beast of the earth, the false prophet system, or the alliance. Revelation 13 describes both systems. The first one, the beast of the sea, the Antichrist spirit, or the Cabal, and the second beast, the beast of the earth, the false prophet, or the alliance. Both systems are made up of wicked people in high places who worship the fallen angels and follow their agendas. The beast systems are both so much bigger than just two human figures. They're two worldwide conglomerates made up of religions, organizations, militaries, and two different agendas. It is important to understand that there are two versions of the New World Order. Not many people are aware of that. Donald Trump is simply the human representation of the light version of the New World Order, the one from the beast of the earth, also called the false prophet system. Remember, a prophet predicts the future. A false prophet predicts a false future. Don't fall for the lie that Trump was sent by God to save America. No human is coming to save America. I hope you realize that that's like saying that God is sending us a savior to save Babylon. And by save, I mean make Babylon great again. Babylon is falling and no one is coming to save it or rebuild it. We are at the end of time and close to Yahusha or Jesus Christ's return. Let me explain the difference between the two beast systems. The foundation of destruction, inversion, and evil was set up by Belial's kingdom, or the Antichrist system, who are all dark occultists or dark Luciferians and follow a specific agenda. The first beast of Revelation, the beast of the sea. Then there's the transition, described in Revelation 13:10, from the first beast to the second beast. The Illuminati calls this the pendulum of power. Seen here is the space in between the floating portion of the ziggurat. And finally, the capstone, which depicts an all-seeing eye. To the dark occultists, this means a world under the complete control of their despotic leadership. To the light occultists, this represents freedom from the, quote, dark, from dark to light, representing the sun and the golden age, turning lead to gold. This is the agenda of the false prophet, the beast of the earth, or the alliance, who are light Luciferians, also called illuminists, who follow their own agenda, different from the dark occultists' agenda. These two paths are represented as right hand and left hand in the Hindu religion, and also in Freemasonry and witchcraft. So the pieces are separate, however, they are still part of the same pyramid. We may have turned the page, moved from the first beast to the second beast, but we're still in the same story. Trump is no hero. He represents a very powerful force of evil. He may do things that look like miracles, but ultimately they're meant to deceive. All of what's happening is outlined in the prophecies of Revelation 13. I encourage you guys to take the time to read or reread Revelation 13 for yourself. It is fascinating and very important to understand what's going on right now. These two beasts are warring against each other for control over humanity. In my opinion, it's also possible that the Cabal actually sees the Alliance as like the God figure, coming to punish them for rejecting the truth and inverting all of God's laws. And the Alliance may believe they are God sent to rid the world of evil. Because the only way to understand an antagonist, and our antagonists are the occultists, both right and left, you have to understand why they think they're a protagonist in their own story. And this is Lucifer's world, so we have to understand why he thinks he's a hero to understand the second beast system. Because the second beast system is acting like it's coming to save us from the first. The Cabal, the first beast system, or the synagogue of Satan, the Jews that are not Jews, forgot about one thing. Jesus. They do not expect him to return. They had a different plan. This plan was exposed by Q in a post from January of 2018. Look at this Q drop. In the blue box, Q says that they never thought she would lose, referring to Hillary Clinton. The Cabal had a 16-year plan to destroy America. Obama, who Q calls Hussein, was given 8 years to install rogue operators, leak classified intel about military assets, cut funding to the military, take command away from generals, launch a, quote, good guy takedown. This would be taking down of the alliance, or the military that Q was working with. Using Valerie Jarrett as the sniffer, or the one who determined who would be removed. Special access programs would be sold to other countries. Snowden would release intel that would destroy the military worldwide, but not the, quote, bad actors. Those are the clowns, or CIA, and no such agency is the NSA. Obama was also tasked with targeting and weakening the conservative base by using the IRS and the mainstream media. He opened the border to flood the country with illegals who vote for Democrats. He let in ISIS fighters and MS-13 gangs. He funded and installed fear and targeted or removed domestic assets, which is U.S. military. Obama allowed North Korea to build nukes. He turned a blind eye to Iran, as well as funding and supplying them with money and weapons. He allowed classified information to leak and staged the assassination of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. He funded the Iranians and North Koreans with uranium-1 and reduced the U.S. nuclear capacity. He defunded NASA to prevent space domination and allowed the Cabal to take down military satellites worldwide, as well as securing communications and installing weapons of mass destruction worldwide. That would risk an EMP attack and leave the country helpless. The Trump administration inverted all of these plans. In the green box, Q says that Hillary was supposed to start World War III, where death and weapons were real, but the war was fake and controlled. This was part of their depopulation agenda. She was to eliminate all rogue operators within the government and military. These would be the ones loyal to the alliance. She was supposed to kill the economy, open the borders, revise the Constitution, ban the sale of firearms, install her own set of Supreme Court judges, remove the Electoral College, manipulate votes using Soros' machine, limit or remove military funding, close all military installations worldwide, starting with Germany, and destroy opposing mainstream media and news outlets. Her task was to completely destroy America, and that would most likely have included a nuclear war with North Korea.
If I had not been elected President of the United States, we would right now, in my opinion, be in a major war with North Korea.
The cabal's depopulation agenda was literally set in stone. That's how sure they were that they were going to succeed. They didn't expect the light Luciferians to fight back so hard, change the script, and win. The reason? We as mankind have free will. The dark occultists, light occultists, and the fallen angels can't force us to do anything against our will, against our consent, no matter how veiled that consent is. Humanity chose to follow the right-hand path almost overnight by shifting their entire way of thinking to love, unity, equality, and spirituality over atheism, which lead to the light New World Order and the quantum financial reset. You have to get off both paths because right and left lead to destruction. Jesus came to break the chains of these philosophies and offer a way out of that kind of dualistic thinking, to see both sides for the deceptions they are. Trump again used a lot of these right-hand ideas in his 2019 State of the Union speech.
This is the time to search for the tallest summit and set our sights on the brightest star. This is the time to rekindle the bonds of love and loyalty and memory that link us together as citizens, as neighbors, as patriots. And we must always keep faith in America's destiny. That one nation, under God, must be the hope and the promise and the light and the glory among all the nations of the world. And the light.
The mark of the beast, which comes from the false prophet or the second beast system, is nothing that can be forced upon every human in a violent way. It's going to come as something that we can't resist. A gift, too good to be true. Like how the false prophet looks like the lamb, but speaks like the dragon. It looks nice on the surface, but ultimately the price is much too high. I'll touch on that subject in a minute. Before the election, Trump told the cabal exactly what he was going to do, and for the first time pulled back the curtain and showed us exactly who was controlling the world. Well, to an extent. Didn't exactly show the light Luciferians.
The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people.
Could he actually win?
No freaking way!
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Donald Trump.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump.
Trump will not be president.
Trump will never be elected president of the United States.
You're not going to be president.
A man who will never be president of the United States.
Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
He will never be president.
Donald Trump is not going to become president of the United States.
Obviously, the polls were wrong. Their rigged machines couldn't deliver a win. Election day cost them more than power and influence. It cost them everything. Hillary didn't even have a concession speech ready that night because she never thought she would lose. November 11, 2016, I took this picture at a local Barnes & Noble. 2 days after Trump won the election, the magazines still weren't on the racks. They were just thrown on a bench. So that was the end of the dark New World Order. The great work of the dark occultists is to keep humanity in a state of general unconsciousness and slavery, and to tighten that control until they're invisible, invincible, and immortal. In other words, they become God. But that was only one of two possible outcomes. Remember, we have free will. And humanity essentially chose to reject their fear-based, slave system, and opt for the new religion of love. That started when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriage on June 26 of 2015. It really signified a lot more than that, and it was a lot more historic than people realize. But everyone knows that at the end of a rainbow is a pot of gold. The problem with this is that that kind of love is conditional love. It's said that Saint Germain is the Shohan of the seventh ray because he chose to remember love. And 2 Timothy 3:2 warns us about this phenomenon of spirituality and rejection of truth by saying that men will be, quote, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. Believe in love, one love. We're seeing that kind of imagery everywhere right now. Love is the new theme, or the new religion, if you will. And it is the opposite of hate. The first beast system used fear and hate to divide us. The second beast system is using love to unify us. This new narrative from the Light New World Order aims for universal enlightenment where truth, love, and freedom prevail. The true great work of light occultists is the distribution of occult knowledge freely to humanity and disclosing everything that the dark occultists use to gain and maintain control over the masses. Instead of a black awakening where movies like The Purge become reality, we're now living in the Great Awakening of disclosure by Q and the military exacting justice on the cabal kingpins like McCain, Clinton, and Bush, and exposing all of the atrocious things that have happened to humanity. Just because the Obama years were dark, and Trump promises to bring in the dawn, or the light, does not mean both of those systems aren't part of the same pyramid or chessboard. Again, this isn't good versus evil, this is bad versus evil. Earthly authority is Luciferian authority, no matter how nicely it's disguised. Revelation 13:11 says, the beast of the earth, the false prophet system, has 2 horns like the lamb, and he spake like the dragon. So this beast has the appearance of righteousness with a Luciferian agenda. I find that a lot of Christians today actually believe loosely veiled New Age teachings, like the ones found in this YouTube video. I'll leave a link to the full video in the description below.
Our Father in heaven chose Donald Trump for this time as an opportunity for his righteous sons and daughters to take back dominion of the earth. He was born for this task, and most importantly, he accepted his calling. Trump is not bound to any religious indoctrinations, and therefore is totally receptive to what has to be done. Trump decided to stand up and step in to stop the destruction of America, which in turn will save the earth.
Trump is a high-level, right-hand Luciferian. He does indeed have a purpose, and it's not to save the world. It's to deceive the people and make them worship the beast behind the second beast system, also known as Lucifer. Not in the form of worshiping some deity or pledging their eternal souls to Lucifer, but by exchanging their hope in a savior, Yahusha or Jesus Christ, for our Lord and Savior Donald Trump, and his promise to make America great again as well as the rest of the world. Yikes.
Our Father in heaven denies any and all prophetic events as described in any book. We have free will, and from this time forward, the righteous must regain total control and dominion of the earth.
We do have free will, and the righteous will regain total and full control over the earth after the second coming. This video is taking Psalm 37:29 out of context. According to the author of this video, there is no tribulation, Jesus is not coming back, and humanity can save itself. In other words, ye shall be as gods. Miraculously, Trump will rid us of the cabal with the promised arrests of high-level people in military tribunals. A new world of technology that was previously hidden will be given to us, a place where all people and all places can live in abundance. Of course, all this will be preceded by a one-time jubilee, or forgiveness of debt, once taxation has been deemed illegal. Lucifer, during his time as the Count of Saint Germain, took great care to make America the land of the free, but it was usurped in the late 1800s by the dark occultists who corrupted the country, privatized the banks, and turned us all into debt slaves. He is now taking America back by way of the Saint Germain World Trust, also called NESARA and JASARA, or the new Quantum Financial Reset, which will phase out fiat currency in exchange for treasury notes in the US, and then the rest of the world will be on a quantum computing blockchain system. The dark occultists at a level called the establishment never considered that these benevolent secret societies could win. Yes, NESARA was said to be announced on September 11th. Yes, the Cabal's plan won. Yes, JFK tried to free the people of the Cabal's control, and again, the Cabal won. Time and time again, the Cabal has overcome all who oppose them. But they never thought she would lose. JFK fought for the light New World Order, like Trump is doing now. According to Q, this prayer is said every day in the Oval Office. Rest in peace, Mr. President, JFK. Through your wisdom and strength since your tragic death, patriots have planned, installed, and by the grace of God, activated the beam of light. We will forever remember your sacrifice. You may look down from above and continue to guide us as we ring the bell of freedom and destroy those who wish to sacrifice our children, our way of life, and our world. We, the people. The capitalization of the words light, freedom, and people is not by mistake. Those three words describe Saint Germain's talking points. He is the light of the heart, he is the one who brings us freedom, and he is also the one who declared that humanity, the people, are free. Q and Trump are supposedly saving us from the dark New World Order. But because most people don't realize that there is a light New World Order, they see him as a literal savior, a hero, a false prophet. Q always says this is not another 4-year election. He's promising a false future full of all the things the Cabal stole from humanity, like taxes, prosperity, peace, technology. Just remember that even though all these things look like they're from God, they're still coming from Lucifer. A worldwide quantum financial reset and the gift of a one-time jubilee might seem like forgiving our debts as we forgive our debtors. But Trump is an illuminist, and every Luciferian knows that with a gift comes a sacrifice. In reality, what Trump is doing is like what the British Empire did to small countries. The British would warn small countries by saying, "You're in danger, we will protect you." When the British moved into small countries like this, they called them protectorates. And then they took over. What pretends to protect actually ends up controlling and enslaving. This is what the mark of the beast represents. A gift that comes with a sacrifice. By promising debt forgiveness and prosperity and peace, the second beast earns our trust, and later we will realize that it was all meant to enslave us and requires a sacrifice or an equal exchange. This sacrifice is your faith that Jesus will fulfill his promise of returning before the grace period to exchange your fiat currency for the new currency ends. By accepting this gift or this debt forgiveness or free money, you will be accepting the mark of the beast and have not overcome the beast system required in Revelation 15:2. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass having the harps of God. I want to make it clear that the sacrifice for accepting this gift is your soul. Your salvation does not come from any Luciferian authority. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you next time.
I'm really rich. I'm much richer than almost anybody. I am so smart. I am the smartest person. I'm one of the smartest people everywhere in the world. It's true. I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. People would say I'm like the super genius of all time. The super genius of all time. I'm a man of great common sense. I'm a very stable genius. I make great deals. I look great. The doctor said, "Man, you have the blood pressure of a great athlete who's 20 years old." I can be more presidential than any president that's ever held this office. Society loves me. Nobody builds walls better than me. Nobody knows the system better than me. Nobody knows politicians better than me. Nobody knows it better than me. Nobody has better toys than I do. Nobody loves the Bible more than I do. Nobody's stronger in Second Amendment than me. Who is better than me? I think I am actually humble. I think I'm much more humble than you would understand.